Well, good morning, and this morning we're broadcasting from the Garden of Peace, a new addition to a piece of ground that had become derelict in Lewes, just by the castle, just by the tilting green, in fact smack bang in the middle of historic Lewes, and it's been converted by various groups that do good works, and the district council, for which I give them full marks, because I don't often give them full marks for much, into a nice little haven of rest and peace. And it was based on the fact that when this was held in private ownership in the 1920s, that a little garden was made here, which was a classic English haven, if you like, with various archways and so on, which will eventually, I understand, be put up or replicated to some extent in the next phase of this. But I think this has already cost, if I'm not mistaken, about £90,000. Nothing comes cheap nowadays. And it is a lovely little haven where people can come and be calm. And indeed, that's what I'm doing this morning, I hope. I'm Keith Hayes, and this is Mirador Television, broadcasting from Lewes in East Sussex. That's Lewes in East Sussex, not Lewes in Delaware, which a friend said the other day. He said he tried to go to Lewes in Delaware, and eventually he made it, but he said he couldn't find it to begin with. He said it's so tucked away. He missed it several times and went around in a loop and so on. And I understand, I've never been to Lewes, Delaware either, but I understand that it is a charming little backwater. And let's hope it stays that way. It's a little chilly this morning. The sun is peeking out over the downs. It also is just a little breezy, and that's why I'm wearing this cap. I did go to London yesterday with my straw hat, and I managed it, but there were gusts of wind that were trying to take it off my head, as sometimes they do. And rather than not be hands-free and have to keep doing that all the time, I decided discretion was the better part of valour this morning, and to put on this cap. Now, there are a couple of things that have happened. Yesterday, I did a rant about the fact that we olders, we elderly people, most of us curmudgeons, still had a great deal to offer, and that we were really getting quite peed off with a generation that don't seem to want to gain anything from our experience, and really would prefer to see us tucked away. We become a nuisance factor. And without getting into a Brexit argument, that's not what this is all about this morning, but the EU are the worst offenders. They are ageist. And ageism is something that really bothers me. But it also bothers me that there are all sorts of isms around, so that the generation of millennials and 2 generations down from myself are so full of isms that nowadays that they're almost afraid to speak. And a former mayor of this town said, well, he was a mayor of the town, but also he was on the Lewes District Council. And he said, you know, nowadays there is no robust debate. Everybody is scared silly of being accused of something if they actually open up and let rip. And I can believe that, because at the 2 meetings that I've attended, 2 council meetings recently, is the politicians keep getting up and saying thank you to their fine executive officers, who actually have made such a muck of the whole administration as you can't believe. It's completely decimated, completely incapable of handling the things that it's supposed to. And then the people who are supposed to be the monitors get up and say, oh, well done thou good and faithful servant. I mean, you couldn't make it up, actually. So really, it worries me. But also, I now have an ally. Let me tell you a little bit about this ally, because Many years ago, in the 1970s, I was assigned to the BBC in Northern Ireland, and we had a particularly fierce news editor called Robin Walsh, who was an excellent journalist. But boy, don't cross him, because he wasn't likely to pat you on the back and say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant," when you actually cocked something up. And one day, a young man hustled into the newsroom and said, "He's going to kill me this morning. He's going to kill me. I just interviewed somebody and I forgot to ask his name." And who was that? That was Jeremy Paxman. Paxo. In his younger days, he was a trainee there. Now, I have to say that Paxo was a very, very gentlemanly chap. Very nice, very considerate, very thoughtful, very articulate. And in his later days, when he learned how to be an aggressive interviewer, it really was the terror of politicians. But in his private life, because I continued not to be parallel with him in his private life, but many people that I know that were neighbours and friends said that he continued off-screen to be very gentlemanly. So I pay attention to what he has to say. And he joined me, or I joined him, or at least we're speaking with a single voice. Because he said the other day, you know, that our present generation are so afraid of offending one another with an ism here and an ism there, and a worry about saying the wrong thing, that the only people left to have a go at, who don't actually get riled up when we have a go at it, are the aged, are the elderly. And he's damn right. But, you know, because it's open debate, I don't care whether people hurl insults at the elderly, because I'm hurling insults back the other way. I'm on the other side of the net at Wimbledon, and every time something comes our way, I hack it back. And, you know, we are not useless. On the contrary, we've got a lot of skills, and we've got a fine education, and we've got experience, and we've got talent, none of which this present generation wants to use. Why? Because probably we'll show them up. And, you know, I was preparing a little thing on ageism yesterday, and I came across that wonderful, wonderful scene in a movie called Space Cowboys. It's about some elderly astronauts that are recalled to try and dismantle a satellite which was built in the 1950s, and all the new people at NASA didn't know how to handle it because it was old technology. And when they're actually looking at the way to dismantle it, one of the youngsters says to Clint Eastwood, who is playing the commander of this older group, and he says, "Well, I don't think we should do it that way." And Clint Eastwood said, "Well, which way would you do it then?" And he fumbles a bit. And when Clint says, well, don't think much of that, he said, "Well, I'll have you know, I have 2 master's degrees from MIT." To which Eastwood replies, "If I was you, I'd ask for your money back." If you haven't seen Space Cowboys, and if you're young, you probably don't want to, because it really is a celebration of us older people. It's hilarious. It's highly amusing. It's a very unusual story, and it's got 4 stars in it, who are worth watching in any movie. But the thing that I like about it is it goes to bat for the older people. It actually says there is no room for ageism in this world, because we are needed sometimes. And I would say exactly the same thing is get off the pot. There is no room for ageism any more than there's any room for any other ism. Let's start talking turkey. Let's start getting our society back together, because it's broken at the moment. And I suspect that a lot of it is because of the isms. And the fact that the youth will not come to grips with the fact that life is pretty tough out there. And if we want a nice nirvana here in the UK, there's nothing wrong with that as an ambition. But let's not get to the point where the rest of the world carries on in a different way, and we're left looking silly and stupid the way we have for the last 2 to 3 years in the eyes of the world. We are Great Britain, for God's sake, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean to say that we dominate other people, but what we did do is we brought to the world great engineers, great thinkers, great philosophers, great intellects, yea, and great journalists. Fleet Street in its day was untouchable like anywhere in the world. Where are they now? Well, they are so old, those people, that they aren't even subject to ageism. I am, and some of my colleagues are. I had lunch yesterday with another colleague just about my age, and we got on with solving a few problems that we're having in the television world. And between us, we actually had a very sensible discussion. Interrupted, I may say, by a couple of glasses of wine, but also interrupted because we disagreed at one point. And we got a bit feisty with one another, and there was nothing wrong with that, because this morning I woke up, and he's still my friend, and he woke up, and I was still his friend. We criticised each other quite sharply at some stage, and, and today I've taken on board what he said, and I think he's taken on board what I've said, and in fact we've exchanged a couple of emails, and the problem that we had is slowly coming towards some sort of solution. So don't think that we old uns lie down and let you trample over us. But what we want to see is a bit more spirit and a bit more thinking and a bit more throwing into the pot a few ideas that perhaps will get us out of the present mess that we're in. Right, that's that bit. See? Yes, old. But still feisty. And the younger generation say we shouldn't use that word, feisty. How daft can they get? Playing around with the English language, one of the most beautiful languages in the world. The language of Shakespeare, Bacon, even of Thatcher. let's not twaddle with it. Let's use it to its full, and as Churchill did. And there was a man of words, and if you've ever read any of his books, you will know what a master craftsman he was with the English language. But anyway, I use the word feisty, despite the fact that the millennials have decided that it's sexist. Would you believe? Can you actually believe that that is so? But it is, apparently. Apparently it is. Anyway, just one other thing is, because Piers Morgan, also from East Sussex, not very far from Lewis, has had a go at Harry and Meghan because they want to have their christening in private. Now, of course, anybody should be able to do that. But he points out that we've just spent £2.5 million on refurbishing their cottage. That money came out of your pocket and mine. I personally don't resent the fact that we do that, because a strong monarchy is really, it's not a question of a monarchy. What we've got is we have got a strong central leader, where other people have got presidents and heads of state of one sort or another, even dictators. We've got a strong monarchy, and we've managed to develop a constitutional monarchy that works. So I don't want to tamper with that. But I do agree with him, is you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't actually dibble into our pockets to refurbish a house and then say, bugger off, we don't want you around during the christening of our child, which is of great public interest. No, Harry, come to grips with it. You know, I know, and I don't suppose I get a knighthood for saying this, but because I'm able to talk to people in various parts. I'm just looking around. So I think there are some nice little birds and things hopping around this morning, just before I go, in this wonderful garden of peace. Because of the people that I'm able to talk to, I know that Meghan wears the trousers over some things in your family. But on some things, you've also got to put your foot down, because you've always been a terrific young man who has understood his responsibilities to the public. Right? That's privilege. Comes with responsibility, just the same as media and reporting and journalism comes with responsibility. You can't just say what you feel like and then, without being able to justify it, you can't do exactly what you want to do without justifying it. And I don't think there's any justification for picking our pockets and then saying, bugger off. Not on. Anyway, that's it for this morning. I've taken the full 15 minutes this morning. Keep swearing I'm not going to, but I got so excited about all these things and enjoyed it. I'm coming back here this morning because there were a group of people that got this Garden of Peace going, and here it is. And one of them is Paul Miles, who has done many a thing in this community, including bringing the Rodin statue back. And Paul was involved in this, and we're going to sit here and have a chat about just how it transpired, and why it's here, and what it replaced, and where is it going. so that's later on today. It will be a recorded interview. We will be showing it later on Mirador Television. Anyway, that's me for this morning. Thank you very much for being with me. Until, oh yes, tomorrow. Until tomorrow, toodle pip.